Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here at our Delaware County Sustainability Commission meeting today. And just welcome to all of you who are here today. Just as a reminder regarding our commission meetings, this committee is being recorded. Because the public can register to attend, we've stopped live streaming, but we will post it on YouTube afterward. And all content will be posted to the Sustainability Commission website. With regard to the format, commission members are panelists and can unmute themselves at any time. Public attendees are present but muted. Anyone from the public can attend by registering on our website to receive the Zoom link. Public comments can be given through the Q&A box at any time. For tonight's meeting, we will not be hosting an open public comment period. Public input can also be sent to sustaindelco@co.delaware.pa.us. Before I go into the roll call, I will discuss the Sustainability Commission charge. So our charge is to create recommendations regarding the best environmental and energy practices in many areas, to identify and assess environmental and energy policies the county has adopted and provide recommendations to promote and educate about the county's environmental and energy initiatives, to identify and provide recommendations regarding voluntary actions, projects, and programs for municipalities, businesses, nonprofits, and other partners to implement county environmental and energy policies, to create, review, and provide ongoing input into a Delaware County Sustainability Action Plan, and finally, to recommend triple bottom line related actions, projects, and programs to council for implementation. Now, I would like to do a roll call. So when I call your name, please say here or present, and don't just raise your hand, but you actually have to say it. Okay, Sean Stansel.
Here.
Becca Yurkovich. Becca Yurkovich. Okay. Stephanie Hassanali. Stephanie Hassanali. Steve Clark. Steve Clark. Carol Martzoff, I'm here, I'm Carol Martzoff. Jacqueline Rhodes. Jacqueline Rhodes. Scott Sidlow.
I am here.
Thank you. Jenny Sachs.
Here.
Thank you. David Director.
I'm here.
Thank you. Ed Orner. Mark Manfrey.
Here.
Thomas Schaefer. Ed McGargy.
Here.
Laura Goodrich Cairns.
Here.
Okay. So
I think for the purposes of tonight, we have a quorum with the currently filled positions. So I think we're good to go on the quorum side.
good. Okay. So like here's our agenda. We just did the welcome and the roll call. Then we will approve the September meeting minutes. Then we'll have a Chief Sustainability Officer update with Francine Locke. And then we'll have, oh, actually, we do want to change some of the order of these. We'd actually like to have the vote on the bylaw amendments before the Parks Condition Assessment presentation by KCBA. Is anyone opposed to that? Okay. All right, great. So after the Chief Sustainability Officer update, then we'll have the vote on the bylaw amendments and we will discuss member recruitment. Then we'll have the Parks Condition Assessment presentation by KCBA. Then we'll have a sustainability outreach update by Sharon J. Then we'll have some committee report outs. Then we'll follow up regarding the solid waste public hearing. Then we'll have public comment. Then we'll have some new business and any announcements, and then we will adjourn. Okay, so We all should have received the September meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the September meeting minutes?
I move we approve the September meeting minutes.
Thank you,
I'll
David.
second that.
Oh, great. Thanks, Ed, for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our September meeting minutes are approved. And now we'll have our Chief Sustainability Officer update with Francine Locke.
Thank you, Carol. Good evening, everyone. Just want to start off by saying that this past month has been filled with budget preparation and working with the 6 departments that I'm overseeing through sustainability has been really an awesome process. Just want to mention that there's a budget narrative, and I've been working with the directors of each one of the departments, and so including a lot of language about sustainability, resilience, and just really getting to know each department to another level of organization of thought. So mission statements, org charts, budget tables, goals, and we're aligning all of that with the work we're doing here. So that's been most of the month, and the capital improvement program developing that budget. Just want to add that. So these are our sustainability social media accounts, and I am a Twitter fan, and there's a ton of information there that we would love for everybody to please check out. So we have a public survey that the members of the commission should be familiar with. This survey is meant to obtain feedback from Delaware County residents and help us to inform the sustainability and climate action plan we're developing. And those surveys are to be completed by November 15th. The CPACE program. So we haven't received any bites yet, I guess you could say, from businesses. But we're going to start a more aggressive advertising campaign with SEF. We hope to have a webinar series in 2022. Laura Goodrich-Cairns has been really, really wonderful in terms of connecting SEF with the local businesses. And I think we're going to see a lot of movement in 2022. And once again, the CIP is being finalized. That's the capital improvement program. And we will be sharing a presentation with the Sustainability Commission. We're finalizing the FCNA reports. KCBA is here today to present on the parks assessment. On October 5th, there was a special Sustainability Commission meeting that you all were invited to and many attended. That was recorded and is available on the Sustainability Commission's website. And as we go through all of this information, please keep in mind the sustainability plan we're developing and how we can utilize all this information. So the Southeastern Pennsylvania Regional Power Purchasing Agreement, RFP, that DVRPC, so the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission is working with Chester, Bucks, Montgomery, and Delaware counties in developing a regional power purchasing agreement, as I've reported out in the past. Once again, this is not a solar plan. This is about trying to procure clean energy at the best value for the counties and coming together collectively with the leveraging power of the counties. So the RFP was for an energy consultant, or is for an energy consultant, and that energy consultant will help guide the work that we're doing as a steering committee. And that has closed. We're reviewing the proposals now. And so another update is the planning department is close to drafting their return on environment study, which is extremely exciting. So the final review is in November. They have found case studies to include in the return on environment study. And that study is really trying to show the economic value of green spaces in Delaware County. So it's very exciting. I can't wait until we have planning report that out to the commission at a later date. LCAP is awesome. So Sharon, Dr. J has been working very closely with 2 students from Bryn Mawr College. She's been mentoring them and also getting them to do a lot of stuff. And so I don't know if you want to mention anything, Sharon, in this slide.
Actually, I'll talk about it again during the outreach part, so that's okay.
Got it. Cool. All right. More to come in the meeting. So the commission, our sustainability commission, has vacancies coming up. And we are recruiting to fill 4 positions. Of course, some of the commission members may also apply and return to the commission. But this is a little bit of an outline as to where you would go if you are interested in becoming a sustainability commission member. And there's the link there. And so just adding that 2 representatives with experience in the field of environmental justice or representing a historically marginalized community. As you recall, that was added to the Sustainability Commission resolution. And that's a new position. That's a new position. A representative with expertise and experience in the field of energy efficiency and or green building practices, and 1 municipal manager or other staff member representing a municipality within the county. So we encourage everybody to please think about these positions and apply accordingly. And so very excited to announce that the hard work done by the planning department has resulted in $6.7 million in grant funds for the municipalities. And there was a nice article in the Delco Times, and it describes a little bit about that. So planning is in the process of reaching out to the municipalities who were awarded these grants and just going through the logistics of figuring out how to move forward. But it's very exciting to think about how Delaware County is supporting the municipalities in creating green and open space. Any questions from the commission or others? Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Okay, so I'm going to skip through these slides real quick and we'll come back. Since we flipped these, you get a very, very fast view of what we're going to present. And we want to talk about bylaw amendments and then reiterate the member recruitment. So our schedule, we got our resolution recommendations and extended our terms in our September 17th meeting. The council approved an edited resolution on October 6th. I emailed it to everybody, but I'm also going to go through what those very minor changes were that we did actually at the council meeting. Tonight, we're going to amend our bylaws, if you so choose, to reflect the changes in the resolution. And then we're going to do some really quick member recruitment to try and work with this fast timeline that we have. As Francine said, online applications for the positions are due by October 31st. But I did have a couple members express by email that they thought that was a little quick, and I do agree. But just to try and work with our timeline, we're going to stick with October 31st for now. But if we don't get enough people turning in applications or do enough recruitment to fill the positions, then we can extend that and then just kind of shift the dates that we do things on in our meetings. So Sustainability Office is working with the county clerk to gather the information from the application system and then make recommendations to the executive director in early November. Then the executive director would approve the member recommendations. And then in our November 19th meeting, which we voted to be our reorganization meeting this year, would be when we vote in new and or returning members. So that means, yeah, our annual reorg meeting is November 19th. Does anybody have any questions about the timeline?
No, but I noticed that in the changes to the bylaws, that is going to be an in-person meeting. Correct?
Not, oh goodness. Let me look. I don't think it specifically calls out the reorg meeting, but I have it on the agenda for later to talk about November 19th and what we want that meeting to be like. And so I would love to get some thoughts about it. And if we decide that November 19th doesn't work for in-person and maybe we want to switch it to December, we can choose to do so at that time. So, and that would give us a little bit more time to recruit. So let's bring that back around to the conversation when we could talk about the November 19th meeting in detail now, if we'd like to.
Actually, Sharon, could you go back? Because I remember, I do remember some of the members expressing concern about the quick turnaround time for additional recruitment. And I believe your reply to that was that you have made direct outreach to certain environmental justice groups to make sure that they were aware. Can you share with us who those groups were so that this committee could perhaps also expand upon that base to ensure that we are reaching everybody possible, especially with this short turnaround time?
Most of the folks that were interested were with Circle in Chester. So we definitely sent them the information. And I wanted to actually, after we did our voting, get some thoughts about member recruitment, because I don't think it would hurt for people to get multiple emails from the commission. If I send one out and you all send one out, I don't think the overlap would hurt. But I'd love to get some ideas about recruitment.
Great. So you want to circle back to that conversation later is what I heard, correct?
Yeah, we could get through the vote part of it and then we can talk about recruitment if that works.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone have concerns about the timeline, or we kind of stick with this for now and we'll see how our conversation goes?
Just a question. Do we have have we gotten any applications yet?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes, one of our existing members reapplied. But that's all I have at the moment because the application hasn't even been open a week. I think I got it working Friday and just told people about it on Monday. So it actually hasn't been open that long. Okay, so I wanted to let you all know exactly what was edited at the council meeting when we got the resolution reapproved. There was one line item on line C where it said 2 municipal managers or officials, each representing a municipality within the county. We've changed that to other staff members. So existing people that actually fill that role that are not staff members are grandfathered until the end of their term. So this does not affect existing members, but the intent that the council had was to make sure that that particular role was either a municipal manager or somebody on their staff that applies for the position so that they're employed by the municipality.
So not elected officials.
Correct.
Okay, the version I have still has elected officials in that line.
It should be in the bylaw amendments that I sent out on Monday
I'll double.
or Tuesday morning. Should have it changed.
Why would you repeat first?
Scott, I couldn't understand what you said.
I'm having connection issues, and my son is making noise in the background playing video games. But and so I didn't hear your full explanation. But right now, I am one of the members representing a municipality, and I am a elected official. I am not a staff member. So,
right. So your
that might affect my
position is, yeah, your position is grandfathered until the end of the term, which I think I'd have to look up and see exactly when your term is up. But then the focus on either having people reapply or new people apply is that it's focused on a municipal manager or a staff member of a municipality. That's what the council wanted it to say, instead of allowing elected officials. So, but your position is grandfathered.
The October amendments to the bylaws do say or elected officials.
There should be the one that I sent out on Tuesday. Let me see. I thought I changed it, but maybe I didn't.
The one I have says other staff members.
I think if you look at the Google version that's online on our Google Docs, officials is crossed out. So it may be when I downloaded it out of there, we may have not accepted an edit or something like that, but it should say to municipal managers or other staff members. And David, you're right. I have the other section that we added in the meeting, to keep allowing us to have remote meetings. The council wants to make sure that we have some call-in feature, which we do through Zoom. People can just call in by phone, even if they don't have internet access. The problem is that they have to have internet access or have somebody sign up for them to then be able to get the phone number to be able to call in. So I have to work on that a little bit. But they did have that the annual reorganization meeting shall be held in person. And then we make appropriate accommodations for virtual meetings for people without internet access. So we're looking through a couple of different ideas around that. Like, do we have an in-person version? So for the without internet access, do we save a conference room here at in media where folks can actually be in person, and then we log into Zoom and kind of manage that, because I've run these meetings from the office anyways, so I could certainly have some folks in the room with me if we absolutely need to. So that's one option. So the annual reorganization meeting, shall be held in person. We had decided to have November 19th as our annual reorg meeting instead of doing it in September, so that we could adjust these changes. What does everybody think about having it in person? It's a 2 o'clock Friday meeting on November 19th. I think the next one is December. Let me look it up.
I'm okay either way.
December 16th at 6 p.m.
That's the next one.
This is
Oh.
Stephanie. It's much easier for me to do the in-person for like the nighttime ones, and then virtual for like the in the middle of the workday one. Thanks.
Yeah, what if folks are most of our public members in the same spot?
I'm open to whatever works best for the most people. So I'm flexible, but understandably, I'm sure it's more convenient for those to meet in the evening in person.
Since we have a few folks that couldn't join us tonight, do we want to just do this by email? Like, I'll survey everybody about whether or not we could have the in-person meeting in November or December, and then kind of have everybody vote, or an either or, and then I'll put everything together and be able to tell everybody what it is. Scott, were you saying
Erin,
something?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject, but I believe that the minutes from last meeting state that the annual reorganization meeting would then be November. So if that is the case and you're looking to move to December, you would have to make that vote today.
Oh, that's true.
So the only thing that I would state is, I don't know that we selected the date specifically in that. I'm open to moving tonight, but I would prefer that it's on a Thursday just because of obligations on Friday evenings.
I thought the splitting the difference of the FCNA meeting, we're putting it at 4 o'clock, was a good solution. So maybe 4 o'clock in person. That way we accommodate those of us who have jobs and those of us who work for the county who would be leaving, try to split the difference. So maybe a 4 o'clock time instead of a 2 o'clock or a 6 o'clock.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Are we voting on changing the times, or I thought we were just voting on in person?
I think so. We figured out with the amendment to the resolution that our annual reorganization meeting has to be in person. That was something that was added by the council. Since the majority of our meetings are now remote, they wanted to make sure that we have our annual reorg meeting in person. So it was written into the resolution.
Oh, well then I would just say that November has to be in person and it's in the evening. Wait, no, November
No,
will be
it's 2
during the
o'clock Friday.
day.
I think that's
yeah.
what we're trying to figure out is, do we have it? And Laura pointed out that we didn't, I'm pretty sure, like she said, we did not actually state the date. We just said the November meeting was going to be our reorg meeting. So we could shift that to a Thursday at 6 or a Thursday at 4 instead of the Friday at 2 and have it on the 18th instead. What do you all think about November 18th at 4?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
No, I see a few nods.
6.
Good.
I mean, can the meeting be in person with not necessarily formally offering a virtual option, but if I were on my way home from work, I could call into it. That's the or that defeats the purpose of the whole thing.
I don't see a reason why we couldn't have a hybrid meeting. That's what we're doing now. So as long as you have the meeting open to the public, the chairman, the vice chairman, and a significant number of the members are there, why not have call-ins? County council still does it that way.
Actually, it's right there in the bylaws. Again, if we read them, it's that we're in section 5, 1 or more members may participate in any meeting of the commission, etc., by means of conference, telephone, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with 4 o'clock on that Thursday, November 18th. I think we should just agree to it now rather than surveying people, so then it could be publicized and then recognizing we'll keep the regular schedule for all the other meetings.
Am I hearing a motion, Jacqueline?
Sure. I would make that motion that we do move our reorganization meeting to November 18th at 4 p.m. in person and leaving the option for those that can't quite make that time to participate virtually.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, it sounds like it was all in favor then.
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to be 4 o'clock on the 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I will find a room, find us a location to do it. Okay. So the bylaw amendments were sent to everyone on Tuesday. Nothing had really changed from what I sent 2 weeks ago. I wanted to point out 2 changes. So everything in the bylaws is the same, except for things that were affected by the resolution. So I didn't put those up on the screen. One thing we did add in section 2, which was there 2 weeks ago, and we have been proposing this all along, was that the members shall serve in their position until their successors are appointed. That was taking care of something that we've been talking about for a couple of months. And then I have a question about one section that says, the commission shall meet a minimum of 6 times per year unless otherwise altered by resolution, and at such locations is determined by resolution with a goal of 1 meeting per month. So that is, that's part of the resolution. We can't change that. But one thing we had put in the bylaws was that meeting dates shall alternate between 6 p.m. on the 3rd Thursday and 2 p.m. on the 3rd Friday of the month. And my suggestion is we do not have to state that in our bylaws. The meeting dates shall alternate at this time, so that if we wanted to at our annual reorganization meeting choose a different time schedule for 2022, we could do that without changing the bylaws every single year. Because there's nothing in our resolution that says we have to state this in our bylaws. So my suggestion is to just make one more amendment where we just delete that line that says meeting dates shall alternate between 6 p.m. on the third Thursday and 2 p.m. on the third Friday of the month.
Sounds very reasonable.
I'd hate to have to change our bylaws every single year because we pick a different meeting schedule. But I
Do we
think
need
that would-
do we need are we going to vote on all of these changes at the same time?
all the same time. So the
Okay.
motion would be to accept the bylaw amendments as proposed, but also deleting this one line of the sentence, making that adjustment. That would probably be an adequate motion.
Okay. Are there any after this slide? I don't think there are, right?
No, but are there any other adjustments to the amendments or the bylaws that anyone has any thoughts on?
Okay, well, if I don't hear any, then would someone like to make a motion to accept the bylaws amendments as we proposed, including deleting the part about the meeting dates shall alternate between 6 p.m. on the third Thursday and 2 p.m. on the third Friday of the month?
I would make that motion, Carol.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Would someone like to second?
Second.
Okay,
Second.
thanks. Oh, thanks, David. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. That motion was passed.
Thank you. So as Francine talked about, the member recruitment, we want to, I just wanted to make sure that everybody, this is a brand new function on the website. So this is probably not the process that you all followed a year and a half ago when you were applying for these positions. So under our court clerks, our county clerk's office website, they now have a thing where you can look up all of the different boards. You click on Sustainability Commission, and then there is a little apply button in the corner. So I wanted to make sure everybody kind of saw this, because this is where we want to point people to. You point them to the county clerk's office, they click on boards, and then they have to look up Sustainability Commission and actually click apply. So if you get any questions, this is what it looks like. So for our November 19th meeting, where we're going to do the reorg, as long as we have enough applications, I'll let people know how that goes by email. What do we want the November 19th meeting to look like? What do we want to do in it? You know, we have to vote in new members. That's kind of a given, but it's open as to what we want that meeting to be like. Do we want to dig into a particular topic? You know, what does the agenda look like?
Well, I think one of the things that we ought to do is to, first of all, after we vote in the new members, we have to get them assigned to committees. It might be an opportunity for anybody who wants to change committee assignments to do so, although at the moment we only have 2 committees, so there's not too much changing to do. But so perhaps one of the things we might want to talk about is, do we need some additional committees? What should we be doing?
Oh, David, it looks like it muted. It muted halfway.
Sorry about that. Essentially, you know, what things could we be doing that we're not doing that are, you know, that's more than an individual effort, that's something worth putting a team on.
I'm going to be working on putting down the sustainability plan work plan in writing, so that we can keep track of things, so we could spend a decent amount of time working through some of that and then brainstorming some of the pieces of the plan that the commission can help with, or the committees could help with. That could be something that we talk about.
I think we almost need a state of the sustainability plan, an update that, so that if the public's going to be there for maybe the first time and live, that we would update where we've been and where we're going.
Okay.
That also gives us a chance to, highlight what progress we've made over the past year, to try to get some enthusiasm among the public, and because that's part of recruitment too, is for people to see that we're doing stuff that's important and worthwhile, and that we're not just a bunch of people sitting around and talking, but that we're actually getting something done.
I'd like to echo second Mr. McGargy's comments as well as Mr. Director's, in terms of, and don't forget to include the ability to hack these solar panels on the roof of the government complex this year, so that you could understand that energy efficiency. But if I can take you back to this member recruitment really quickly, is there a paper application, Sharon? Because one of the things that we heard at last night's council meeting were two individuals in the city of Chester where most of our poverty is centered and our environmental injustice. And they were, both of those residents, one of them a public official, were consistently talking about the digital divide that exists within the city of Chester. So their ability to apply would be reliant on a cell phone, and that would have to be a smart cell phone. Is the application just a letter of intent and also a resume? Or is there an actual application? And is there a secondary way to be able to apply to be a commission member?
We could, it is like an online application form where you then also attach your resume, and the kind of the idea of the like a paragraph that you would write up as your letter of interest actually goes into the form. I think one of the problems is we do most of our meetings remotely. So if they don't have broadband access, like, we're going to be working out a way for people to attend these meetings either in person or by phone or something like that, so that if they don't have internet access, they could attend. I'm just concerned about it from a member level, because we do a lot by email, we do a lot by our Zoom meetings, but I would love to know what other people think about that. We can figure out a way to make the application paper. We can make.
It's Mark. In terms of accessibility for folks like in Chester and Toby Farms and Upland, we have a facility that can handle a capacity of close to 350 folks down at the Redwood Community Center. If that would help anybody to resolve an issue of getting the public there, if we ever turn to a in-person meeting.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, Laura, talking about the application, we could certainly figure out how to do it by email or paper. I don't know if the online application could be turned into a PDF, but I could certainly transcribe it into something that somebody could fill out on paper. We could definitely do that. Does anyone have any other thoughts on member recruitment?
Just, you had stated you had conversations with the Circle Group, correct?
Yes, I sent it to Ms. Zulene. She had asked me about it.
Okay, I think there's a couple of other organizations, including but not limited to the CRC, that does a lot of volunteer work down in the city and interacts with a lot of that community.
Okay.
A lot of the community to be able to, think about some of those secondary organizations that do work within the city that could probably easily identify very engaged residents.
Sure.
But I'll, of course, also, and I'll try to figure it out myself in terms of, I didn't really, like, most of those applications are just a statement of intent and resume, but I applaud you for actually having an application. But I'll also give thought to who else we can reach out to see about engagement from some of our lower income communities.
Yeah, I would encourage all of the members to spread this far and wide to whatever groups you want to, because Laura, it may just be that I don't have those emails or those connections because I'm new. And so I really need help from all of the members online to be able to recruit properly. So
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, and you're going to have to build rapport. I mean, we talk about that consistently. You know, I think that the reason why those two individuals were so successful are because they were community members that were recognized last night by council.
Yeah.
It's just that they have been engaged with this government and trusted what they were doing in order to be able to participate in that process. So it worked well, but you do need to build rapport with certain folks.
that's right.
Could we do some advertising? And I'm not, electronic advertising is easy and has a very low footprint, but flyers at libraries in the county, because there would be usually, I think most libraries have some internet access, public availability. That might be another place where we could reach maybe harder to reach residents.
Okay. I will look into that. Any other thoughts on recruitment? Okay.
This is Elaine. I'm sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. We can put it out through our PR department, and I also think it's a great idea to put it on the Sustain Delco Facebook page, and then everybody who's on this commission, share that with all of your networks. But I find we get a lot of applicants through our Facebook page. Those get shared a lot, and people, because you can just click on it right from there. So.
Okay.
So if we send Adrienne something, she'll get it on her page or the county council page, and then we can put it on the Sustain Delco page as well.
Will do. Okay. Any other thoughts on recruitment? And then we can talk a little bit more about November 18th. Any other ideas for November 18th, our reorg meeting?
I just have a question. Is it the 18th or the 19th? I think sometimes I've heard 19th.
It was supposed to be. No, it's the 19th. We
No,
just
it's the 18th, but
at
it was
4
supposed to be.
instead of the 19th at 2.
Right. I just want to be sure because okay.
It's Thursday at 4.
Yes.
Instead of Friday at 2.
Yes, and that was my understanding too, but
yes.
I think having, a state of the commission, a state of the sustainability plan, new members, I think those are all good standing items for this type of meeting. Also maybe looking ahead at the calendar for the year, seeing what's coming up, events that we want to try to do a little planning ahead of time. So I think, looking at the calendar would be beneficial too at this meeting.
Along with that idea, I think that's a great idea, having the calendar. But
Oh, David, you got muted again.
sorry about that. I don't know. Got a twitchy thumb, I guess. Some things that we might like to do. I had come across an item, I think I sent it to Francine perhaps, about an event that was going on in New Jersey, taking place at, it might have been at Princeton. And what it was an exposition for commercial landscaping services, and they were partnering with a company that distributed, high quality electric commercial grade landscaping products. mowers and trimmers and, you know, all of the stuff, to show them how good they were, how capable they were, and how much better they were to use. You know, you're not breathing the fumes all day, you know, you don't have to go fill up all these gas tanks every morning. You know, all the advantages of going electric. And it occurred to me that this would be a great thing to try to partner with Penn State on, to maybe do something next year. And you know, maybe there are other ideas out there, things that we might be able to help get organized. Hopefully we don't need to invest a great deal of our own effort in, if we can find organizations to, you know, sort of, you know, push organizations together to create, you know, these kind of events. Just a thought.
Okay, well, let me take those ideas and kind of start fleshing out what that would look like in a 2-hour period, and the facilitation, who we might need to bring in and to help, or and then I will float around an agenda with the executive committee, and we'll kind of narrow down what that meeting looks like and go from there. Does that sound okay?
Good.
Okay. And if anything else pops up in your head, just email me, just like normal. Okay, so now I'm gonna, actually, we are going to back up and let Mike talk.
Almost there.
Almost there, okay.
Almost there. There you go. All right. Thanks, Dr. J. And
Let me do a really quick intro. We did our building facility condition assessment on October 5th as a special extra meeting. Thanks for those that were able to join us live. And I know more folks have watched it on the video recording. So thank you very much for doing that. We also, in the condition assessment, actually did our parks. And so Mike is here for a much shorter time than we spent on October 5th to talk about parks. But it's very interesting to kind of see the difference between our buildings and their systems and that kind of thing, and then our parks. And so I think you will be happy with the presentation. And so I'm going to let Mike get into it. But if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat, and then we'll kind of wrap up questions. We have a slide at the end where we really want to talk about and have a discussion. So I'm going to let Mike take it from here.
okay, thank you, Dr. J. And thanks everybody for giving me more of your time. You know, for those that were here on October 5th, we spent a good 2 hours together. And so tonight we're going to give you a much abridged presentation where we're going to talk about the parks in Delaware County, what we found, and you know, kind of keep it FCNA light for the evening. So we're going to start out, we're going to talk about Parks Condition Index. I think we've talked about Facilities Conditions Index before. It's not very different, but it's not the same either. We're going to go through our findings, and then we're going to talk about recommendations after that. And just a reminder, we're just one member of a team. So I'm Mike Thompson with KCBA Architects. I'm sure you're all used to seeing me on screen by now. I'm usually joined by Calsta from Bureau Veritas. He unfortunately could not join us tonight, but he will make the next meeting. We also have Hunt Engineering and Global Corrections Group and Arrow Real Estate on our team as well. Go ahead, Sharon, next slide. So PCI, Parks Condition Index. What is that? So I'm not going to put anybody on the spot tonight, no pop quizzes. But when we thought last time we met, we talked about the Facilities Condition Index. Basically the same thing, except for when we talk about a Facilities Condition Index, we're talking about buildings. We're talking about the value of the building as a whole. When we talk about parks, we're not talking about parks, the value of the park as a whole. We're talking about the value of the assets within the park, sum total to the whole. So we add up the value of all the assets that we find throughout the park. If we find some deficiencies in the park, we take the value of that asset and divide it against the total asset value of the park. And that's how we generate our our PCI score. So Sharon, next slide. Right, and so there it is. So we go out into the parks, just like we do with the buildings. We thoroughly analyze and take a look at everything in the park. We go through when we find every asset that we think that the county has within that park. We compile everything into the asset calc software that Bureau Veritas has been using and that the county is beginning to get more familiar with, which is a really powerful tool. And we do our calculations from there. And Sharon, if you want to go to the next slide. And so what does that look like? Well, it kind of looks like this. We spend a lot of time out in the parks trudging through, trying to find every asset. So what you're seeing on the screen here, this is Rose Tree Park. Each one of those tags represents an asset that the county owns within the park. So the sum total of the value of all of these assets is what we're considering when we talk about the actual park value in the PCI score. And then each one of these assets has its own value. And that's what we're summing up to kind of come up with this PCI score. Any questions so far on PCI?
Yeah, one quick question.
Sure.
Do the roads within the park, are they also included as assets?
Yes. Yeah. And you'll see as we get a little further along, a lot of what we found pertains to just kind of annual repaving and the conditions of asphalt in a lot of the parks. So yes, that is considered as an asset. All right, Sharon, I think you can go to the next one. So we're going to talk about our findings. That gazebo, by the way, that was a great picnic pavilion in Glen Providence Park. I highly recommend it if you can get out there. It's one of the best parks in the county, in my opinion. So what did we find? Well, we found this enormous spreadsheet that we have up on the screen in front of you. It's a lot of numbers to look at. So we tried to refine it and simplify it. So Sharon, you want to go to the next slide. Based on what we found just this summer, these are the PCI scores that we found across the parks. And by PCI scores, I mean, well, we have these 4 rankings. Excellent, which is a PCI score of 0 to 5%, meaning that we found a lot of assets out there, but we didn't find a lot of defects in those assets. Good is at the next tier, which we don't actually have on this particular slide, but that is 6% to 10%. Fair is the beginning of the bottom half of the slide. So that usually goes from 11% to 30%, and then poor is anything over 30%. So anything with a PCI score of greater than 30%, we generally think of as something that has hit the end of its useful life, and we have to start really thinking about taking extreme measures to preserve it or refresh it or enhance it or even replace it. So the current conditions of the park, and that's much to the credit of Mr. Manfrey, who's on the call today, we found out of the 16 parks, 13 of them are in excellent condition as we sit here today. One of them, which is Upland Park, is in fair condition. Some of the playground equipment is getting a little worn. And 2 of them are in poor condition. And those 2 parks have deteriorating assets, as does Upland. So historic structures that are kind of sitting out there and beginning to fall apart and need some action. Either they need to be disassembled and removed, or they need to be refreshed and refurbished. So this is the state of your parks right now. But, and Darren, if you want to go to the next slide, if we don't take any action on what you see in the presentation tonight, this is going to be the state of the parks in 10 years. So you can see that excellent has now totally flipped. We went from a majority of parks being in excellent condition to a majority of parks being in poor condition. So it's extremely urgent and imperative and valuable for the county to continually fund annual maintenance at the parks and make sure that the parks aren't falling into disrepair and keep up with a lot of these maintenance projects that we're going to hear about. Go ahead to the next slide, Sharon. So we're going to quickly walk you through the individual conditions of each park. These are 5-year, I should say PCI instead of FCI. Sorry about that. 5-year scores. So this is just to give you a little bit of reaction time, because what we see today, you're probably not going to be able to rectify today. You're going to need to go through a budgeting process and plan things out and make sure that the monies are in place and that the bids are in place and the contractors are in place a couple of years down the road to really make these repairs. So generally, I want to go through and talk about things in 5 years. So what we're finding in 5 years on the eastern half of the county is that the Darby Creek Trail is going to be in poor condition. We found some of the asphalt was beginning to deteriorate and some of the assets were beginning to age. Kent Dog Park is the same. A lot of maintenance is required there. There's a lot of wood chips that need to be replaced on a fairly regular basis, parking lot, and just the dog runs in general. Shrigley Park was in excellent condition 5 years out, as is Pennock Woods. And the reason that those two parks are in excellent condition is because they're undeveloped. So there's really not many assets in there to maintain. So you just have the raw value of the land more than anything else, but there's nothing to take care of or to update or continually keep up to snuff. And then finally, we have Little Flower Manor Park, which is one of the county's newest, but that is the one where we have Woodburn Mansion sitting there. And we need to figure out what we want to do as a county with it. And it's a beautiful Horace Trumbauer mansion, but it's, time to think about where it's going to go in the future. If you want to go to the next slide, in the southern half of the county, we have three more parks. Leadham Estates Park, which we found to be in pretty fair condition. Leadham Estates has a lot of assets on it. It's a baseball, a little league park for the most part. Lots of fields. There's some Boy Scout assets on there. Generally, everything was in pretty good shape. A couple of ADA issues that maybe should be fixed, but nothing significant. Willow Park we're showing here as in poor condition, 5 years out. Again, Willow Park is one of those parks that doesn't have a lot of physical assets on it, but it does have a baseball field and one or two benches. And the back stand for the baseball field, as well as the benches, they're in deteriorating conditions. So really, because we have three assets there and they're all beginning to reach the end of their useful life, that's the only reason you're really seeing this park in poor condition. Otherwise, there's a lot of greenery, some nice rough trails through there. So it's not as urgent as it may appear on this slide. Catania Park was the same as Leadham Estates Park. Again, another park that seems to feature baseball fields and athletics. So there's a lot more assets for the county on there, but generally it was in pretty good shape. Again, some minor ADA issues, some minor end of life issues for a lot of the equipment that's out there, but nothing significant. You want to move to the next one? Going further south to the southwest in the county, Chester Creek Trail, we found that one to be in pretty good shape. Even 5 years out, it's in fair condition. Clayton Memorial Park continues to be in good condition 5 years out. Clayton's one of your larger parks, and it's more difficult to maintain. But again, the Parks and Rec crew has been doing a pretty good job of keeping up to snuff and hitting that annual maintenance. So there's not a lot of concern on that one. Upland Park is in fair condition, and that's one of the ones that we really do need to keep an eye on. There's a historical asset in that park, part of the Crozer family's mansion that remains as a carriage house. But even some of the equipment, the community center that's there is deteriorating and needs some love, needs a new roof, and probably going to need a new skin. And the playground that's also there is really in pretty poor shape, even as we sit here tonight. And next slide. And finally, the last group of parks, more towards the center of the county. Rose Tree Park, again, 5 years out from now, it's still going to be in good condition. Martin Park is another one where there isn't a whole lot of development, so there's really not a whole lot to maintain, which means it's going to stay in excellent condition even 5 years out. Mineral Hill Park is in poor condition. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And Glen Providence Park will continue to be in excellent condition. There's a few assets there, but generally everything's in pretty good shape. And the same with Smedley Park as well. So what do all these scores mean? Oh, there you go. Well, basically the PCI scores translate to dollars because that's where we're evaluating the cost of the repair versus the cost of the total assets in the park. So what we're finding is that in terms of immediate needs, if you're going to make a whole lot of repairs in 2021, you would need to spend about $22.5 million. And the reason really for that is because of some issues out at Little Flower Manor, Mineral Hill, and Upland County Park. Everything else is actually in pretty good shape. But as time goes on, you can see how the field begins to change and we see more rose color in there. The more rose color you see, the more urgent the repairs are, because that's where we're getting over that 30% in terms of PCI. If you want to go to the next slide, Sharon. And one of the issues, one of the things that we really need to address with PCI is that what you saw on that last slide, those costs begin to add up. They're cumulative over time. So what you're seeing here, this is PCI results for Kent Park. And on the left side of the slide, you're seeing the years 2021 and 2022, where there's not a whole lot of work to be done. But in 2023, some of your assets begin to hit the end of their useful lifespan. And if they're not addressed, now you see a compound in 2024. So the blue bar at the bottom of 2024 is the new needs that need to be addressed in the year 2024. The gray bar that's on top of that blue bar is the assets that weren't maintained in 2023. So now that cost is rolling forward to 2024. And you see that again in 2025. And then you start to see it really significantly jump as the years go by. So you go from a park that is excellent in condition now to one that by 2031, 10 years out, if it's not maintained well, it's going to be in poor condition. So it's pretty important that you keep up with these maintenance costs and address them. This is the expenditure forecast for each one of the parks. So this is a sum total of all the costs that we found throughout all the parks, broken down by system within those parks. So you can see in terms of immediate need, interiors is over $20 million. And again, that's because of some of these historic assets that need to be addressed. So Woodburn Manor, there's a Boy Scout camp in Mineral Hill Park. And then we also have some increased costs a couple of years out. And that's really just the parking lots and asphalt. A lot of the main systems that you have just need to be replaced on a recurring, regular basis. And so that's what you're seeing on the 11 to 20 year column. Sharon, you want to go to the next slide? So recommendations, what do we think of all this stuff? Next slide. Well, the first thing that needs to be considered moving forward is what happens with the Don Guanella tract. We know that the county recently purchased another 250 plus acres in Marple. So we need to consider what that means for the county. And our team will be going out and walking through one of the structures on there to evaluate it and see if there's any way of repurposing it, what it could do and what it could mean for the park. But there are other considerations that need to be contemplated as we move forward, and that'll be in the next slide, Sharon. So basically 3 categories. First one, continue to budget for and acquire land for new parks. So you've already done that with the Guanella tract. But what does it really mean? Who is it really serving? It's important to continue to expand access to the green that the county offers, but that doesn't have to happen in terms of large chunks of land. You have neighborhoods in Chester, Eddystone, Sharon Hill. They have small vacant lots that can be turned into a smaller version of a park. They can become community gardens. They can become small dog runs. They can become just a pocket park. Small places for community members to gather and enjoy the company of one another, and hopefully, give youth a location to participate in activities and stay out of trouble. Those parks can also be located close to mass transit, so now it's easier for people to get there. One of the issues that I've seen with the Guanella tract is that it's only accessible by one bus line. So that kind of limits the reach and the usability to a lot of the population of Delaware County. If you can find these smaller parks and put them within the neighborhoods, you'll have a lot more use and they'll see a lot more benefit in the community. The other thing to think about moving forward is consider your site access and parking. Martin Park is a great park. It's not developed. When you arrive there, there's absolutely no indication that you've arrived. There's no signage. There's no place to park. There are great dirt trails that run through there. There's even some stone assets that are down in the bottom of the valley there, some historical structures, but you just don't know that they're there. So setting up some kind of an entry point or a front door to some of the parks that you have, like Mineral Hill even, is important. Making sure that the community knows that those parks are there for use is certainly important. The other thing is just to rethink play and what play is and what a playground can be. Upland Park was the one park that had a play set that was almost ADA compliant, but when I say almost, it was still pretty far off. The playground has a black plastic curb that wraps around it to hold the wood chips in. There's a ramp to get over that curb and into the play area. But once you're in the play area in a lot of these parks, you can't move. There's either wood chips that are in your way and prohibiting a wheelchair from moving forward, or in the case of Upland, it was deteriorating rubberized play surface that was just falling apart and leaving pits all over the place. The equipment at Upland also had a ramp that allowed you to get up onto a couple of the tiers of the climber. But at some point, there was always a dead end. There's always a step that a child would have to climb up, and somebody in a wheelchair just could not go any further. They would have to turn around and go back. So rethinking of what play is and how play can be integrated into the park is really crucial, and thinking about how kids can play inclusively and use that park together and maintain friendships and bonds that don't get stopped by a step in the middle of a play structure. The other thing is just to continue updating your open space and your rec and greenway plans. A lot of the parks are located very close together: Willow, Shrigley, Catania. These are also, they're already noted as being contemplated as part of a trail system, but the work doesn't seem to have really occurred yet. And it really would be great in some of these urbanized neighborhoods where you do have these smaller parks close together to build some kind of connection to them and allow some more walkability to access them. There's a lot of, particularly in the neighborhoods where Willow and Shrigley and Catania are, there's a lot of traffic. Anything you can do to kind of enhance pedestrian safety and encourage use of those parks, I think would be very beneficial. So that's parks at a very, very high level. Like I said, we bombarded you with a lot of information a couple of weeks ago. It was an hour-and-a-half presentation. But I'm just kind of curious, what are your thoughts on what you're hearing tonight? And what would you like to see from parks moving forward?
And I'm available, Mike, if anyone has any questions on the committee for me.
I just want to also add once again, reiterate that this information will be used to inform a facilities master plan for the county as we move forward. The FCNA data that has been collected by KCBA is extraordinarily valuable to us. And so this is going to be the data that we use to inform our capital improvement program in 2022 moving forward.
And to make mention of the Upland Playground, that is in the design phase with Pannoni Associates that we've been working on for the last 2 years, along with our destination playground at Rose Tree and Little Flower. Upland is a very, very important facility for us. We do a lot of programming there, a lot of permits, and that playground is invaluable. So it is in the process of being the design phase of the renovating of that facility.
If I can ask, Mike, so the assessment that you did on the parks was what is current. So the conceptual budget in terms of what the costs are going to be to either take them out of being in poor condition or to maintain their better condition is based on what exists currently, whereas the preliminary recommendations are for upgrades going forward, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, each park has its own kind of quirks, and we really didn't have time to go through each park individually and list out what the individual issues are. So in summation, in terms of kind of generalizing, asphalt was a big concern, accessibility was a big concern. All those things are listed out in the report. They're all listed out in that expenditure forecast that I briefly showed you earlier, and then we overlaid the pictures on. That gives you a systems snapshot, and that is actually broken down. We have one of those for each park. That'll help Mark Manfrey and his team really plot out the next 10 years and figure out what their priorities and their focus will be in terms of maintaining and replacing equipment and assets in those parks.
To piggyback a little bit off what Francine said, the black topping at Upland, Clayton, and I believe Little Flower is in our CIP request.
Okay. But and back to Mike really quickly. Sorry, Mark. When you say asset of a public park, can you provide definition for what that asset is? Because there was like 400 of those tags all over Rose Tree Park, and I'm like,
yeah. So that is very difficult to quantify on a piece of paper. So what we've done for the county is, and it's really our partners at Bureau Veritas that are on our team, but unfortunately they couldn't be here tonight. But they've put everything into this massive database called Asset Calc. So CalSTEP's team was able to go out in the field, they cataloged everything, they tagged everything onto that aerial image that you saw before with all those 400 tags. When you get into Asset Calc, you can pull that screen up, you can click on each one of those tags and see exactly what it is, exactly what its value is. It even gives you the GPS coordinates so you can find it exactly in the park if you want to walk out and take a look at it. And it tells you what the anticipated end of useful life is for each one of those assets.
So in summary, as I understand it, this is literally just a plan to maintain the assets that are already in existence, not upgrade or make improvements to anything. Your preliminary recommendations are for upgrades.
Correct. For the most part, we're looking at what you have now. The recommendations that we're talking about are more recommendations to look forward. So yes, but part of moving forward is you have to maintain what you have. So we spent a considerable amount of time trying to figure out what you have and what's going to need to be maintained before you move forward. So these are our recommendations moving forward, but you do need to consider that there's a considerable expenditure of cash that will need to occur over the next 10 years just to keep your current parks functioning.
Well, I have a newfound, a new higher level of respect for Mark Manfrey for the way that this is all, especially with the knowing in prior years, some of the shortages that he's faced, not only in staff, but also in budget. So Mark, I applaud you for keeping things above the water line, so to speak, for all of these assets throughout Delaware County. Thank you.
I'd like to echo that, Laura. Absolutely.
Thanks. Appreciate your compliments.
I have a quick question about the asphalt. Mike, I don't know if you have any data or other studies, or you have any compilation of information on long-term cost of permeable paving for parking lots, and if it's worth it, does it last longer? Are there benefits associated with it? So if some of the parking surfaces weren't just maintained with asphalt as they currently are, is it worth the investment in terms of longevity, stormwater management, to look for permeable materials where it works, knowing that there's also a maintenance cost associated with permeables?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't know that I have the full answer for you, as I'm merely an architect. This is where Bureau Veritas joining me this evening would have been, helpful, because they do have a lot more of the nuts and bolts knowledge than I do. Anecdotally, though, permeable paving is something that I have worked with in the past. It is definitely more expensive, both to procure and to install, and it does take a lot more maintenance. So it's porous paving. The pores within the paving tend to clog up over time, so it does require a lot of power washing just to maintain that permeability. And it also seems to have a propensity to break down faster than standard asphalt. So there's probably a more rapid replacement cycle on pervious paving than there would be with just standard paving. That's not to say it's not a good product. I think it really depends on the volume of traffic that you're running across it. If you got a heavily traveled,
yeah,
It's
all
so
specific.
Yeah. So it's like at a place like Rose Tree, I don't know if it's going to hold up because you have a lot more people driving in and out of Rose Tree. But at a place like Martin Park, where it's fairly quiet and you don't have a parking lot right at the moment, might not be a bad option. It just kind of depends on what the costs and the markets bear.
I have a question for Mark. So, Mark, I presume you've seen this information prior to this conversation. And
Last Friday.
Last Friday.
We've been working with Mike for the last month and a half, maybe 2 months, right, Mike?
We've been working together since May.
Yeah, maybe longer. Yeah.
So, what have you learned that you didn't know about? I mean, this is your baby. The park system is your baby. What did you learn that you didn't know, or is there anything you disagree with that could be thought of differently, or is it what is your impression of this report?
I think it's, quite frankly, and to be candid, it's spot on. I mean, I look at Mineral Hill that we purchased back 10 to 12 years ago. And actually, I'm having a meeting tomorrow with Pico and Steve Beckley and Peter Williamson, who's on our board, who used to be with Natural Lands, to figure out an easement into accessing Mineral Hill. It's a passive park full of natural trails, but accessibility there is tough. And this study has made that quite evident. And I think Mike would agree that, that scouting facility we had on a list a few years ago to be torn down. And we had a group of citizens, they were trying to develop a friends group, a coalition. And one was a scoutmaster who'd like to see that renovated, but they kind of fell off the face of the earth. I haven't heard much from them. Fellow by the name of Ackroyd, great guy. And but I think it's spot on. I really do. Paving's a real issue. It's been on our CIP for a few years. Upland, I'm kind of biased with Upland. I love the place. The senior center. The permitting at Upland is at an all-time high, but that playground, it's needed. I mean, we had a meeting today about our Wake Football League that utilizes and is permitted out there for the last 5 months. And, that's something that we need. Parents who have children playing ball that want an outlet, and there are other kids that are tagging along to go to the games that can have a place to play. We tried to do some, Band-Aid jobs there with the surface, the rubberized surface. That playground's over 20 years old, maybe older. I love Upland. I will confess I'm biased towards Upland Park. It's really a neat place, surrounded by 5 communities: Brookhaven, Toby Farms, Chester Township, Upland, and borders Nether Prov, and it's truly a community park where you could find from this study, the study that Mike did in his group, that we're more regional, but Upland and Kent, I would say, would be more of a community park.
Definitely,
But
I agree.
Spot on. I mean, Scott, spot on. A lot of these improvements are on our CIP list, but I will tell you, on that CIP list is aging infrastructure, and Mike can attest to this, and I'm sure he's going to get to that when he has our facilities assessment done, is our buildings in our park. Our newest building, and it's about 10 years old in terms of renovation, is the Rose Tree Tavern, the home of the Visit Delco folks. Our home, the Leadham House, is an aging building that needs a tremendous amount of attention. The Hunt Club, which is the home of the Solid Waste and Soil Conservation Department, it's on the historic register, but we're always coming across Band-Aid issues, infrastructure issues. Ed can attest to that. But what Mike, the assessment that Mike and his crew did was about the buildings as well.
Mhm.
Aging infrastructure.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Mark, you just cited three buildings. We actually went through another 50 on top of that, and we found that the newest building that I think we walked through in the county inventory was Government Center. It was either Government Center or Building 8, built in the late 1970s. So all of it is aging and really helping.
Don't get me wrong. Let me interrupt. I love where we're at. Is Elaine's still on here? I love our location. You can't beat going to Rose Tree Park every morning. Francine came over last week with Sue DePompio, or this week. It's a great place to work, but the buildings are in desperate need of repair.
Yeah, and that's universal throughout the county inventory for the most part.
Someone mentioned, I just want to add a little commercial. Someone mentioned about our Earth Day celebration in April. It's already in motion with the Pennsylvania's Resources Council, that we're working on to develop a native rain garden somewhere in the county, probably along the Darby Creek corridor. So that's something I can report somewhere down the line. But Scott, to answer your question, this is spot on. Definitely. Great job by Mike and his team.
Thank you.
glad it was useful for you, and I hope you have good success with following in the future, Mark.
And I will add the Darby Creek Trail, the Carter, we've had stormwater problems there for I mean, the trail is only 3.5 years old, and we've had problems with it's in a floodplain. It's a shame because it's a beautiful, beautiful area. It really is.
Does anyone have one of the questions I asked at the last one we went over the facilities was, how could we use this kind of information in the work that we're doing with the sustainability plan and thinking about how we can use this info?
If no one else has some thoughts, I'll offer some. Number one is, I noticed also in the chat, Sharon, that there was a question about fundraisers. And so one of the things that I don't believe that county government can do is fundraising, but there can always be, similar to the way school districts have foundations, I think there could be the establishment of some foundation to be able to do fundraising to help support the parks. And the reason why I'm suggesting that is, we all pay taxes, but that is a limited amount, and there is a lot going on to correct some things in the county these days, which are going to demand a lot of money. So I'm looking at this and excited. And the first thing I want to do is say, like, everything should be in the budget supported to parks, which is the antithesis of what an acting commerce director should say. But parks are actually a very valuable asset to us, and we're trying to see what we can do to help marry assets, being businesses and also parks and other assets within the county. So that's number one. The second one would be, I love your description of Upland Park, Mark. And, maybe it isn't a foundation for like all of the park system in Delaware County, but maybe it's creating those community centers to be able to help maintain. But also, I think one of the reasons why the council created this commission was not only to be able to change what could happen within the county, to be a leader in terms of sustainability, but also to then be the example for others. So when Mark talks about coordinating with the PRC to do a rain garden, shouldn't that be like some sort of public demonstration? I think the PRC out west, which is better funded, actually hosts compost seminars, including, providing the materials for homeowners to start composting at home. So maybe we should be thinking along those lines in terms of how to be the lead by example.
I will tell you, Laura, that, in some cases, we do some development in the park and rec area. We do have relationships with Acme, Pico, Comcast, and some other companies that fundraise for us and contribute to the concert series. The coalitions that have been formed, such as the Friends of Glen Providence Park, they're a 501c3. The Friends of Smedley Park and the Darby Creek Valley organization all have 501c3s, and they do help without question. But in a lot of areas in a lot of rec departments and parks and rec departments in the state, they do have development folks that go out and raise funding and to help offset the costs. But that's something that we spoke about in the transition during the transition meetings we had in late 19 with the transition of the administration. I spoke to Ann Toole about that for a while, and there's some rec departments out west, out Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, and also Pittsburgh that their rec directors wear a couple hats, and one of them are development folks. They have their development people.
Can I? There's another aspect of what this group can do in terms of all of this work that is anticipated through these recommendations. This is millions of dollars worth of capital projects, and they're going to get done eventually. And if you don't have someone constantly questioning, they're all going to get done with the status quo of whatever the technology is at the time. And I would love to see this group with each one of these projects looking at the most sustainable way to do that. I mean, the question about the porous concrete was a great question. You know, it is an economic challenge with the state of technology right now, but that's the type of thinking, you know, when these parking lots are developed, you know, prodding to make sure that there are chargers, EV chargers in them. When these place sets get designed, pressuring or recommending that recycled materials are used, you know, that type of thing, where the money is going to be spent, the projects are going to be done. And if you don't have someone advocating constantly and reminding that there's a more sustainable way to do most of these things, they're going to get done the cheapest way that we always do it. And that, I think, is a really important role of this group, is taking the sustainability lens to all of projects, small and big, and really making sure that we're considering every option, and that we putting pressure on council to make the decision to do it the sustainable way.
I just want to add, you have my word as the Chief Sustainability Officer for Delaware County that I will be that voice as much as in my role I can be. And I think it was very smart to arrange the county with the Chief Sustainability Officer overseeing Public Works, because we are going to be developing design standards that will have all of those things that you just mentioned. So here, Laura just put that in the chat box. Here, I'm with you.
Any other thought?
Just to echo, I think that was, you know, when I saw the resolution creating this council, that's what I envisioned that the council was requesting, was to be able to get support to be able to do things in a sustainable manner. And I understand that transition, you know, a lot of the folks on this commission are probably used to being on the outside and not necessarily in a position to make those types of recommendations. But I think that that's exactly what you just heard from Councilwoman Schaefer, that they're literally inviting you to provide input into some of those projects from the county level, especially to be the leader and lead the way in terms of what development should look like, where they are in charge.
And you know, just to add, with the budget development or working with the departments, we have infused a ton of language into the budget booklet that you'll see published for the 2022 budget that includes the work we're doing here, and includes in Public Works, making sure that we are creating environments that are adaptive and mitigating the risks to climate change. And I just want to say that this is the work that we are doing, Sharon and myself, and it's really important work to include in all aspects of the operations within Delaware County, and we're trying to do that, and hopefully you'll see it with the budgets that are coming out, the narratives.
Any other final thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
I'll just speak on behalf of Assistant Scout about the Boy Scouts. I'm an Assistant Scout Master with two troops, one for my daughter, one for my son. So it is news to me that there is a Boy Scout facility in one of the county parks, because we're always looking for places to camp and do activities. And I want to find out more about that particular park. The other thing I would say is Eagle Scouts are always looking for Eagle Scout projects. So if you have things that can be done that are small projects, Eagle Scouts are looking for those opportunities and are always trying to figure out what is good. If a list can be made of like small projects, make 3 picnic benches, finish off this little area and make it look in such a way, and then it's designed by the scout. You know, chunking off little scout projects can add up to a big resource over time if we can coordinate and organize it. So always looking for Eagle Scout projects is
Scott, we had three in the last 2 months at Smedley Park. A set of steps were put in, And we,
Oh.
the county, we purchased some material for the youngster, and great project that he put in, a set of steps accessing the playground, and one built a kiosk, an information kiosk, and he modeled it after the signage that we just put in. It's a great project. And we did a couple down at Kent Park, where we had a information kiosk put in at the trailhead at Darby Creek. So if anybody, to echo what Scott's saying, if anybody's involved in the Scouts, they're great programs, and reach out to us. I mean, we'll assist. I'll write a letter to the organization, and we'll work on that. Scott, just for your information, we also have overnight camping a couple of times during the year at Clayton. But you can give me a call tomorrow whenever. We'll talk about the Mineral Hills scouting area.
I'm going to Clayton Park this weekend with the Scouts. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think a good project for a scout would to be put a nice, cute little green roof on that scouting building.
Great. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to move on to the next topic, which we already covered this. So I'm going to give a quick, thank you, Mike, for the presentation. I wanted to say that real quick before I move on to the next topic. Appreciate it.
Mike was great to work with. He really was. Great group.
No problem. And thanks everybody for your time. And Mark, thanks for your input. It was really invaluable putting together the report. So thanks everybody.
Okay, so I'm going to give a quick update on the sustainability outreach that we're working on. So right now we're working on the operational assessments based on our high-level goals. So I'm talking with individual departments and learning what kind of data they have now, and then combining it with a lot of data that actually came out of the SCNA process, and then working on our baselines. The planning department, especially our GIS group, is going to be helping a lot with that. So there's a lot of things that are tracked. We just have to see whether or not that tracking data actually is helpful, or if we have to tweak the way we do it. In a moment, we're going to be talking about committees. So I would love to talk about actually kicking off that equity and inclusion committee. I don't know if we can recruit a couple more people for it, but we definitely want to get that kicked off. And then we'll take those assessments and the results from the outreach that I'll talk about on the next slide, and come back to you all to adjust goals and kind of go from there. So what we're working on for outreach right now, so I am meeting with operational departments. A lot of that is just for my purposes, just to get to know about what they do. But it's also learning from the people who do the work, because sometimes they're some of the best ones that have the really best ideas. So I love talking with the folks that work in our operational groups. We're probably going to be scheduling some focus group meetings. I want to have a couple of internal meetings for county employees, that anybody that is interested to come to a room and talk about sustainability. Maybe they have some ideas about what they do and how to improve things. For our municipalities, our LCAP students, Sei-Chin and Estefania, are starting to email our municipalities to schedule interviews. They're going to be using the survey that we worked on to actually talk with them one-on-one. And we, depending on how long that takes, I think we're shooting for the December meeting to actually present consolidated results. We'll just have to see how that timing works out with the end of their semester. So it might be January if we can't figure out December, but I'll have that information. After the initial interviews, then we'll decide which ones, which groups need additional meetings. And then we plan on following up with a survey that's very specific on the data collection side. We just need to decide exactly what data we are collecting to ask the right questions. So as we talked about earlier, on the public side, our general public survey is live. It's actually for those that were helping me with the survey. It's a shortened version because of restrictions with SurveyMonkey. And so we did a shorter version just to be a little bit more targeted for this first round. And then maybe based on those results, then we can maybe do a follow-up survey in the spring or something like that. So that survey is going to be open for a full month. It's already been open for about a week, and we already have about 200 responses. So anything that you all can do to share through LinkedIn or, you know, through your social media or something like that, please go to Sustain Delco's Facebook, and you can pull those tweets or those Facebook posts and just share them so that we get a lot of responses. Our students are also working on email outreach to the EACs to see whether or not I can, myself or Francine, whichever one's available, can actually attend their next EAC meeting to talk about what they're working on. We actually got to participate. There was a regional EAC meeting last night where a local group had hosted. We had about 42 to 45 people on the line last night talking about all of the neat stuff that's happening in the environmental action councils and committees kind of all over the Philadelphia region. It wasn't just Delco. So that was really interesting to listen into. And so they're also reaching out to assorted NGOs and others just to introduce the Office of Sustainability, the Sustainability Commission, ask them if they can distribute the survey, and then get an actual point of contact so we know who we can reach out to the next time around. I'm working on scheduling a couple of open public meetings in different areas of the county. What I'm hoping is we'll probably host one here in the council meeting room based on when I can actually get the room reserved. Hoping in November, we'll see with all of the budget meetings going on. And then I'm hoping that some of the outreach to the local NGOs or the EACs may turn into that group maybe hosting a smaller focus group or a larger public meeting somewhere in their particular area of the county. Does anyone have any questions? This is really just an update of what I presented last month, but to show you guys that we're actually making some progress, and hopefully we'll have more to share with you next time.
I do want to add that Sharon has been the interim public works director for the past almost 2 months. And that has been extraordinarily helpful, but it has taken her away from the sustainability plan a little bit. And so we're looking forward to having a public works director in the near future.
Okay, any questions on the outreach update? Okay, if not, we will move on. So committees, our zero waste committee got to meet once. I don't know if anybody in that committee wants to give a short report out about what we talked about on Friday.
Can we add the conversation about the non-commission members who are interested in being in that committee, zero waste? Because I received a phone call today from a member of the public, of someone who specializes in environmental justice and other such with waste, zero waste. And so wondering if the zero waste committee is open to having maybe a subject matter expert or a member of the public join that. And no, actually we had two. Someone else reached out to you, Sharon, right?
Yep, we have several people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on board. That sounds good. I'll only add to the discussion.
Yeah,
What we can accomplish.
I would think it would be worthwhile to have, you know, the more the merrier. If we have people with knowledge, you know, we should absolutely have them.
Yeah, on Friday, we talked about, in the committee meeting, we talked about what is the role of the zero waste task force or committee. And I think we're going to be doing some initial kind of research on different topics within the zero waste hierarchy to make sure that the members are I guess, well educated about it. And I can share with them the folks that have reached out to us from the public that would like to be on that committee. So we'll do that. And then we're just waiting on the solid waste consultant. And I know we've got an update on that in a slide or two to be able to because I think with the outreach And with a lot of the work that was planned into the RFP for the solid waste plan consultant, I think that committee will end up being really busy working with them on different pieces of that. So.
Yeah, and I would just add that, I guess one of the comments I think you brought up, Sharon, was about, better defining what we'd like to see as our goal and what would be included in the plan as like, I guess, our mission to accomplishing zero waste, but also looking at some examples with the universities. Just FYI, I attended a conference today, and Jersey City is doing some pretty cool things. They've created a drop-off composting program in the city. And so they have bins where people can go drop off their composting at like strategic locations throughout the city. They partner with some composting companies. So they're doing a bike pickup of composting. Like there's just some really cool stuff out there. I'm sure that we'll be able to hear about those and hopefully, share that with the consultant. Maybe there are things that people could pick up on that they want to do right away in towns. I don't know, but just wanted to share that with others that weren't in the task force meeting.
Something I'd like to share regarding composting and composting programs. I think it's safe to say that I'm older than any of the rest of you. And I grew up in Delaware County. We moved here in the 50s when I was in elementary school. And in those days, we used to have two separate waste collections. We had a trash collection and we had a garbage collection. And the garbage men would come down the back of the houses, carrying big cans, and would empty our smaller garbage can. And that's where we got rid of our food waste. And this was before the days of garbage disposals. And I assumed they were composted or sent off to nearby farms to be fed to the pigs. But I don't know exactly what happened to them. Now, if we could, if we can bring that back, that would be a real coup.
And then
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you for sharing that, David. I actually remember my grandmother had the garbage pail, and it was always, she put her coffee grinds in it and all of her food, the food waste, and that's such a great point. Things don't always get better with time, right?
Right. And God forbid you put food waste in the trash can. That was a real no-no.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of like that in my household. They all know we kind of like put it outside or, and also another cool program. I don't want to take up too much time, but collecting pizza boxes, because, you're not really supposed to recycle it when it gets the grease on it. Like maybe you could recycle the other half, but there's a farmer I know, he collects them and then uses that in order to block the weeds. So you dig down into the soil a little bit, lay down the cardboard boxes, and then that, instead of using plastic and things like that, it's like another tip that you could use even for homeowners.
Well, the Media Borough composting program is now taking pizza boxes.
Awesome.
Regardless of how much grease is on them.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a cool task force if anybody else wants to join.
I may say no more people in zero waste, and I need them in equity and inclusion. Or whatever we want to talk about. So I wanted to bring this one up again because we had two people and we just haven't had a chance to actually get together and talk about when we're going to meet. But I wanted to put a call out and see if there's anybody else that's interested in being on the equity and inclusion group so that we can start working on some equity statements and kind of rubrics and thoughts about how we should include it into the plan.
Sharon, am I included in that? Because I'm interested in that. Okay, thank you.
Yep, I have your name.
Got it. And I'm sorry, I heard, maybe it was Francine earlier, about adding outside people to some of these groups. And I don't know if that was just applying to zero waste, where I know we were going to talk to the new person on the solid waste committee, but is that an option for these?
No, it totally is. I think that might be very interesting to maybe recruit a couple of members on the equity inclusion side to help us with that. So yeah, if you're interested, you can just email me if we don't want to talk about it now. So I just wanted to, we haven't had a meeting yet. We just needed to get it a little organized, and we will try and have an update for the next time. Okay, anyone have any other thoughts or questions that then we need to talk about committees? Okay.
So the plan committee is not meeting right now. That's more in your hands to get research from outside the committee.
I think so, because I don't have anything for them to act on at the moment until I complete the assessments. And so I think once we get some assessments done, but actually we were thinking that the sustainability plan group could help with some of the outreach. But I think some of the ideas around the outreach and different meetings, like if I do have a public meeting in one area, that maybe I could have a sustainability commission member join me, or something like that. So I actually may, on the outreach side, recruit everybody to see who's available. But if the sustainability plan committee wants to meet and we can talk about what needs to be done, we can certainly do that. So it's up to you guys. So maybe we can do an email thread with the groups and talk about it. Okay. So we wanted to do a follow-up from the solid waste management public hearing that was on September 30th, I think it was. Francine, do you want to do the update, or would you like me to?
I could give a little bit, and if you want to add, that would be great. So if any, I'm not sure who else was there, but I know that Carol, Jenny, and I think Steve was there. Yeah, it was nice to meet folks in person. It was the first time. And it was a really enlightening hearing. We had a very good turnout. I think we had about 40 speakers, 30 or 40 speakers that actually signed up and spoke at the meeting, gave their testimony. And it's available online too, as Sharon has posted here. So you can take a look at that hearing yourself firsthand. And let's think if there's anything else I want to share. Commission members given access to Google. Okay, yeah, you guys can take a look at that if you're a commission member in the Google folder. The solid waste management plan consultant RFP that was advertised. We did receive responses, and there will be an announcement of the status of this at the next county council meeting, in which that there will be a vote at that time, and then we'll be able to announce who the consultant is at that time. I think that meeting's November 2nd. And I think that's it. Mike Ewell just posted in the chat the link to the waste hearing video. Yep. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on the public hearing?
Jim McLaughlin just said, were all materials provided published online, meaning there were submissions via email, and also the presentations that were shared by the speakers, but there were also materials that were given to, yes, you know what I'm saying, Sharon.
Yeah, so what's available publicly is the video, the actual hearing, the presentations, the public comment that came in by email, and anything else that was attached in those emails were made available to the council in a OneDrive folder, basically. So they have everything.
Very comprehensive. That was very comprehensive. Sharon put that together, and any submissions, including Mr. McLaughlin, there were slides that you shared. They were included with that packet of information that was given to council members.
Yeah, so we provided a drive to the council members, and then we also copied that and made it available to the commission members. Jim, I don't know if that can be, that is a decision by council, because it was council's hearing. And so they would make the decisions as to what would be posted online. So that might be a really good question to put in through the normal public comment email that goes straight to council, because that would be their decision. Okay. But thank you for asking that, Jim. Any other questions on the hearing? Okay. So this is a time for, I actually can't figure out at the moment how to unmute folks. We have at least 5 people that are attending for the public, but if you'd like to put some stuff in the chat and make sure it goes to everyone, we can read your question out loud and then, or your statement out loud, and we can actually say it. While we're collecting any public comment through the chat box, I wanted to let everybody know a couple of months ago, we were talking about the emails that came into the Sustained Delco email and how to share that with you all. And so I finally got to put together a Google Doc that has all of the past emails that have come in. I think they started in May, and they went all the way up through now. And so it's in the, it's accessible to commission members. It's in the Google Drive in the communications and outreach folder. So as part of the follow-up with the information from today's meeting, I will give you all the link to the Google Drive and to that document so that you can see the emails that have come in. There are not any that need to be answered at the moment. We've been able to answer all the emails that came in. And I also wanted to acknowledge that Karen, who's one of our public attendees, I think she works in media, has sent a couple of comments in about recruitment ideas that I'm actually going to take advantage of and work on. So I wanted to acknowledge that she had sent some things in through email during the meeting. So I will make sure to look at the different ideas that she threw in on sent in for recruitment. For this past month, actually, we haven't really had much come in through the Sustained Delco email, so there's actually nothing to catch up on in the last month. Most of it had to do with the solid waste public hearing, because we had about 45 email public comments come in that you all can see on the Google Drive. So Jim asked the question, could you please talk about the status of the solid waste management plan selection process? He says, I understand that council will announce a single selection in November, but are the proposers known?
Well, I'm not sure what the policy is for the county in terms of sharing that information right now during this process, but I know at the county council meeting, that will all be summarized and shared with the public at that time. So there will be the summarization of when the advertisement took place, how many firms responded, the names of those firms, and how we selected the winner. Can you say how many bids were received? Come on, Jim, you're pushing. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if I can do that. I really don't want to steal the thunder on the day of the council hearing. Councilmember Schaefer, do you know if that can be stated here, or do we really need to wait until the meeting? I'm not sure if we're able to say that now.
I think that the number of bidders is fine. I'm not sure that I would disclose at this point who the bidders were, because nobody's been chosen yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that should wait until the process unfolds.
Well, it's kind of funny because if it is okay to share, there was only one proposal received. But we did receive responses from others saying why they did not submit proposals. So we will be sharing all of that at the county council meeting thoroughly. And who is leading the selection process? Through Public Works and Sustainability. But that will all be shared at the meeting.
Before. I said that.
In front of, before.
Okay, this is actually our last item, asking if whether or not we have any other business, more announcements. I need to change this slide now because the next meeting is November 18th at 4 p.m. as our annual reorg meeting that we'll do in person with an online option, and I will get you all more details about that. So is there any other things that we need to chat about or announce?
Where
Okay, then that's actually our last item.
Okay,
You've got
mean-
a question here in the chat box.
This is right now, Karen, right now our health inspections are the means by which we ensure that restaurants are recycling. Check off box for recycling bins and a recycling contract. When the county takes over health inspections, will they be checking for recycling evidence? That is a good question. I think that is all still in the works. I would hope so. But I know all of those processes and the standing up of exactly what the health department's going to be doing during their health inspections is still in the works. So, and we will probably have a say in the process, probably reviewing some of the processes, but I don't have any more details to share at this moment. So I think they're still working on that.
Sharon, can you hear me okay? This is Becca.
Yeah, Becca.
Okay. Hi. Just to add an additional context to this, while the health inspections are a great way for municipalities to make sure that restaurants and other businesses are recycling, it's not the only way. So each year municipalities apply for something called a 904 grant, which is a recycling performance grant, and it is based on tonnage. As a part of that grant, we're required to collect information and surveys back from each of our businesses regarding their recycling efforts to ensure that we're accurately portraying, one, that businesses are in fact recycling with to comply with local ordinances, but to also, the funding is based on your tonnage as a municipality. So that reporting is enforced by municipalities, and it is another way to check to make sure that people are in fact recycling. So it's a secondary check as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that context, because I did not know that. Very helpful.
We have a comment from Laura also, but also a great point for sustainability to recommend that the new health department collect information on for sure.
Any other thoughts or final business? Okay, Carol?
Well, okay, if no other discussions or anything, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, thanks,
second.
David. Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our meeting is adjourned, and thank you everyone for attending, and just thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Carol. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.